Hey everyone, welcome back to another lesson. So in this one, we're going to talk about adding methods to your classes. Now, so far, we've talked about adding attributes to your classes. And in this one, I want to show you some examples of adding a method to your class. Now, just a quick reminder, an attribute is something that your class has. For example, if you can imagine your class is a car, your car does have seats or tires or an engine, right? And a method is something that your class does. All right, so again, back to that car example, a method of the car would be moving, right? Moving is something that a car does. It moves around, so that is a method. So a method is essentially a function inside your class that is supposed to do something, right? So that's what I want to demonstrate today. So again, if you remember, we talked about attributes, and in the attributes, we use the init, init function, basically the init model, the constructor, to actually say that this is an attribute. But in a method, what we do is we simply just define a function. It's really, really simple. And that's how you know it is a method versus an attribute. All right. So I want to actually use something. I want to actually start building this code here. And so we are, let's say, building our social media code, right? And we got like first name, last name, we got followers and all that stuff. So one of the things I want to do is I want to obviously add a username, right? So that's something I want to do. But more importantly, I want this social media to create its own username with their first name and last name. So when they give us their first name and last name, we're just going to put it together and make it a username. Very simple, right? So that's how I'm going to do it. And and this is very simple. I'm going to define a new attribute here. I'm just going to call it username. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to say first name plus last name. There you go. So we're basically concatenating the first name and last name, and whatever we add, it's going to be like, for example, Jake Newman or something like that. Again, it's just going to be added together, right? So that's very simple, and that's what we did. We just add a new attribute to this, to this class. Perfect. All right. So now I'm going to actually define a method, and the way again you do this is use the define, same thing, but you actually are going to create a function inside. And for this particular function, what I want to do is I want to give them the ability to actually change their username. All right. So by default, when they actually set up their account, we're going to, and as you see, this is a default value because we actually don't have it here. So we just this is something we automatically create basically. So by default, their username is going to be their first name and last name together, right? But I just want to give them the ability to change that, obviously. So I'm going to create a method that is going to change their username. Very simple. Take a look how I do this. So I'm going to say define. Obviously, I'm going to call this method change username. Perfect. And we're going to have a parentheses, which is going to have self. That's very important. Okay. Again, that's basically something you're going to have in every every class that you create. So again, because we're referring to the values inside this class. So that's why we want to have self in there. And then I'm just going to take the username. So these are the values I want to input, I want to take from the user. So that would be the username, and this would be this attribute right here, right? And what I want to take as well is a new username. All right, so that's basically what we want. So now we have these two. Let's actually go ahead and create it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say self username equals new username. All right, so basically what is going to happen is that, well, let's actually give it a print as well so we know that the username was changed. I'm just going to say username was changed. All right, so now what we have here is a method that when it's called is going to help us change the username. All right, let's go ahead and actually put it to use, guys. All right, so I'm just going to create an object, and we're going to, say, okay, let's actually print a username first. I'm just going to say user equals user. So we're going to call our, class, and we'll create an object from it. Obviously, I'm going to put my name, because again, within this class, what we have here is that we have these entries that means that we have to give the class these values, right? When we actually create an object from it. So first name, last name, I obviously have to enter this. So I'm just going to say, for example, Jake, and for the last name, we're going to say Newman. All right, perfect. So that's what we have, right? And let's actually go ahead and actually print this. So I'm just going to say print, and I'm going to say, well, print username. So I want to show you that we actually, with this, here, well, with this attribute here, we created the username. So if I run this, we're going to say a new user has been created, and there you go. So we got our username. Perfect. All right. And also we can actually lowercase it if you want. And remember, we have to use the lowercase method to actually lowercase stuff. That's something you can apply as well, but that's not important right now. So we got a username. Now I actually want to change this. And again, it's really simple, right? I'm just going to call this method, obviously this object that we created. I'm going to say change username. See? Do you see we got this M icon here? It says this is a method. So I'm just going to call this. And we're going to give it the old username, which is Jake. Well, actually, let's actually just give it to the username, which is So I'm just going to copy it from here. There you go. And the new username, which is going to be, for example, my new username. All right. So now, if I actually print this one more time. Username, there you go. So if I print this one more time, we should technically get a different result from the previous one. Take a look. There you go. So we got the set message said new user has been created, username was changed, and then my new username. Just like that, we changed our username. Very simple, right? So, and I just realized that it was a little bit inefficient in a sense, because we actually don't need to take the existing username because we already have it. So a better way of doing this would be, I think, just not take the username, okay? And let's say new username, we take that value, and we're just gonna say, there you go. I think that would be fine, right? And we would just say, yeah, we'll just take this out. I think this would work this way. Almost sure. There you go. Yeah. So again, I just realized that we don't even have to get the existing username because we already have it in the value, right? So there you go. So we just, with one single value, we just change it. It says, hey, change your username to this, and there you go. So just like that, we changed it. So this is how you create methods. As I said, methods in a class are basically, commands to do something, right? Take information and create something, or add something, or make something new, or something like that. Again, that's basically what it is. It's a method, right? And these attributes are things that we have in there as values. For example, first name, last name, followers, all that stuff. So that is pretty much how the method creation works, or adding methods work to in your system, in your classes. All right, so I want to do one more thing to just kind of, again, I just want to show you more examples of like using this, so you kind of become more familiar with it. Let's actually do something else. I want to, again, in the interest of creating our own social media, what I want to do is I want to have following count too. So if you imagine, for example, Instagram, when you follow someone on Instagram, right, you have a follower count on your account. These are people who are following you, but then you actually have a following account, which means these are people you're following. So so we're gonna have that as well. Following equals 0. All right, so that means, like, again, when you start, you have a 0 following account. All right, so one thing I want to do, let's actually not get rid of this stuff that we created. I feel like that's very useful. Okay, so I'm not going to get rid of that. So again, let's just go ahead and create the following. So I'm just going to call self following. I just want to create another method for this. Basically, that's my goal here. All right, so let's go ahead and create a follow method. Basically, the idea with this is that this way users are actually, when they follow each other, we change the follower count, right? So that's what I want to do. So I'm just going to define a new function, all right? Or a function inside this class. I'm going to call this follow, and we're going to say self, obviously, and then we're going to have the user, all right? So the idea with this is that we want to provide the user that we're following. All right. So now we want to change a few things. The first thing I want to change is, first of all, the user follower count. All right. So I'm just going to say user followers. All right. And we're going to say plus equals 1. So basically we're adding, when you follow someone, right, using this method, we're adding number one basically to their followers, to their follower count, right? And in this case, self, obviously because we're doing something for ourselves, we actually are adding, let's actually go back here. All right, so I'm actually adding a follower to, or a following to my own, right? Because again, we are adding a following, because again, when you follow someone, you actually have one is going to be added to your following, right? So that's basically how it works. So now what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and actually check this out. Let's actually print this. Hopefully I did this right. I have a feeling I'm making a mistake here, but we'll find out. All right, so I'm going to create an object, a few objects. Let's say user1 equals user, and then let's give it a first name. I'm just gonna say Sean, and then my last name, and then we're going to have another one, user2. We're gonna create an object from this as well, user, and then we're gonna say Jake. All right, so there you go. So we got 2 users here. So now I want the user1 to follow user2, right? So let's go ahead and do this. So user1, which is, well, let's user1, which is, Sean, is following, there you go. And we're gonna say it's gonna follow user2. All right, so I'm just gonna say user2. All right, so technically when we do this, user2 is going to have followers, or 1 follower, right? So let's go ahead and see if this works. I'm going to print user2 followers, user2 followers. All right, so let's go ahead and see if we can get 1. So if we get 1, this means that we were able to add 1 to the user2's followers. So let's see if that works. There you go. Yep, so just like that, we added 1 to the user1's follower, user2's follower, right? So user1 basically followed the user2. So that's basically how it works, guys. As you see, you can create methods to do all sorts of different things. And as we move forward, you're going to see me actually use this heavily in many things, especially in the practice that is coming up, which is going to be a very interesting one, where we're going to be creating our own classes and methods and attributes and all that stuff. So anyways, let me know if you have any questions. Make sure you practice this, and let me know, if you need anything, if you have any questions about this stuff. But again, it can be a little bit confusing, but when you actually practice this more, this was my personal experience, is that when you actually practice this stuff a little bit more, spend some time on it, you start to get a grasp of it, you understand it better. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions, guys. If not, I'll see you in the next lesson.